Leroy Cruz here, your life applications officer. I don't know what I want to talk about, but I'll talk about it anyway. I been listening to a lot of Jesse Lee Peterson. Anybody that's been watching my channel knows that I just watch YouTube and then I rant about what I see on YouTube. And I did a video not too long ago about me versus Jesse Lee Peterson, because I love Jesse Lee Peterson, and he believes two things that I disagree with. He believes, first of all, that there is no racism. And anyone that's watching my channel knows that I don't support blackness, and I'm not black conscious. Anyone watching my channel, if you've been paying attention, you know that I'm not one to, get together with black people and complain about any white supremacy or none of that. I agree with Jesse Lee on most things. I believe that white supremacy does not exist. Okay? So before we get started, understand that I don't believe that white supremacy exists. And I don't believe in systematic racism either. But I do believe in racism. Why? Because I go through it all the time. Now, I was offended yesterday by a woman that I always go out of my way and sit down next to her at work. And the guard, who's a biracial kid, young college kid, he was there too, and we just love to sit there and talk with her. And after all this time, she decided last night to talk about how she thinks racism is wrong. Okay? And she went to talking like a typical Democrat, even though she supports the fact that I voted for Donald Trump, and she supports the fact that the Democrats are wrong about a lot of things, and she supports the fact that, don't judge Donald Trump on things that you don't know nothing about, and she's respectful of that. But last night, she decided to tell us, she just brought it up, to tell us that she's not racist. That she thinks that what's going on with blacks, blacks and the police and all this stuff is wrong. Anyone who just feels that they have to tell you that out of the clear blue. This is another place where I get with Jesse Lee. Jesse Lee tells white people that they should stand up and stop being afraid of black people and all this kind of stuff. And I agree with that. And last night I felt that, and then when we were talking about cops, now the biracial kid, the guard that was there, he felt a need to throw cops in there. I wasn't going there, but when he went there, I let him know what police stories, okay, that I after viewing them so many times, I agree with blacks that it shouldn't have happened, like that Trayvon Martin thing. And a lot of white people got the story wrong. Trayvon Martin was not killed by a cop. He was killed by a Spanish dude who was trying to play cop. The cops, the white cops, told this Spanish knucklehead to stay in the car. If he hadn't got out of the car, Trayvon Martin would be in jail right now, but he'd still be alive. And I'm holding on to that. You can argue with me all you want. He was told to stay in the car because he was not a cop. He was Crime Watch. So, oh, well, he's Crime Watch. All these white people got on, the channel that I was on, and they was like constantly saying, well, he's Crime Watch. That means he's got a right to carry a gun and he's got a right to go and investigate. Yes. But he asked the cops. Who's in authority here? He asked the cops. He already did his job. He found the guy. He told the cops that he was suspicious. And he said, he looked like he's going to buy drugs or something, and he's walking down. It's like such and such o'clock a.m. in the morning, and he's walking down there, and it's dark, and nobody's out. He looked like he's up to something. He said, should I get out, and should I go follow him? They said, no, stay in the car. He got out of the car. And then he had to save his life. And if somebody was following me, I wouldn't put my hands on them because I don't know if they armed. And I don't know how, and I ain't trying to fight with them. But I'd have to stop and say, hey, man, why are you following me? Even if it was a cop. I'd have to say, are you following me? You know what I'm saying? Like, just some things should have never happened. But most of the others, I don't see where the cops did anything that I wouldn't do. I work with police. Okay, and I also do security. And I know that when you go to work every day and you want to go home to your families, you don't want to go home with a black eye or a busted jaw. You don't want to go home with your work all over your clothing or all over your face, or, you don't want to go home, and have to go. You don't want your wife coming to see you at the hospital just because you're a cop. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to shoot somebody. You know what I mean? I ain't sign up to fight with these people. I'm not no MMA fighter. I'm not doing this for pleasure. I'm doing this to help people. It's all about the sacrifice. And that's something I said to my lady friend last night, along with the biracial kid, the guard. I let him know. It's all about the sacrifice. If you're not, being a cop is, and what I liked about this biracial kid is, I knew he was a sweet kid, and I knew that he would say some good things. I was really impressed with him on what he said a cop is supposed to be and all like that, but I disagree with him on when he got to, like, talking about black issues. She's over here sitting there. She's the one that started the conversation, which I thought was dumb. I'll tell you that why. I'll tell you why in a minute. And then he jumped in there with, the cops. And, I'm thinking, did I say something I shouldn't have said? I don't want to sound like Black Lives Matter. I don't want to sound like typical blackie who don't know how to, who don't know how to act around white people or biracial people. He thinks everything is racism and blah, 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 blah. He can't go to work without talking about racism. He can't eat a sandwich without talking about racism. I am not that guy. Why are we in this conversation? I felt it was wrong. I felt strange. It wasn't wrong, but I felt strange. And I've done it myself. Where I would get around white people and I wanted them to know that I was on their side, and it was like, you just go off on hating on black folks, because and I realized after a while, and especially after listening to Jesse Lee Peterson, which is another thing I disagree with him about, is the way he tries to tell white people, you know what I mean, like he's on their side. But this woman, closing this segment of the video, she's a friend of mine, and she always brags about me and talks about me. What part of all that is not, what part of that is racism? Where in there does she feel she needs to go a step further and tell me she's not a racist? So you kind of exposed yourself when you went there, because like my pastor, he's a white pastor, like he always says, he says if there's no racism, there's no conversation about racism. Why are we talking about it? Who's bringing it up? It's not up for discussion. He's right. For a while I thought, well, that right there sounds racist. We need to talk about it. Why do we need to talk about it? Why? And then I realized after that, I started listening to Morgan Freeman, and he said some very, very great things. So did Denzel Washington on racism. They both say stuff like, what if I stop calling you white and you stop calling me black? What if the word racism was illegal to even say it, just like the N-word is illegal to say it? What if we stop calling each other Americans by what country we came from and called ourselves Americans because we're legal citizens? Morgan Freeman says stuff like that. Now, let me get spiritual about this. My lady friend, I think she meant well, but she lets me know that she has some skeletons in her closet when she thinks that you go to showing love to somebody, okay, and you go to, always wanting them to come over there and talk with you, and they come over there and talk with you, they help you on your computer, they do all these things to help you because maybe they like old people, maybe they feel that somebody should be there helping you because you're the oldest member of the team, and all these things. And most of the employees, it's not just me, but it's another black lady that works there, it's the lieutenant that works there. And people just come by her desk and they want to help this old lady because she's the oldest member of the team. She comes in and out of there on a walker and has to wait for transport to pick her up. And she has all kinds of sicknesses and stuff, and we just feel like, hey, let's go. When I do my rounds, I go sit next to her for about 30 minutes in between rounds, and I just sit there and talk to her, and I like her. She's a really nice lady, but she kind of troubles me that she thinks that after all the good that she's done, she needs to explain to someone that she's not a racist. I gotta be some kind of god-darn idiot if I think she's a racist. And I have to be some kind of idiot if I think that she is uncomfortable around me. But after last night, I don't know. Because that's one of the things that the Democrats do that gets the black vote. They talk about racism when we ain't thinking about racism. And then the next thing you know, like this video that I watched today about blacks in India. This white reporter goes into India and he goes in there to investigate racism against blacks in India. That sounds democratic to me. Anyway, cameras rolling. He meets this really nice Indian dude. Really nice Indian dude. And the guy says, there's no racism here in India, sir. We love the black people. We love the African Americans. We love them. There is no racism. So he says, I want you to get in the car. We're going to take a ride. We're going to show you your people. Show him his people. So he goes to this village. He takes them clear out cities. They were driving for hours. Wait a minute, you just said there are plenty of black people in India and there is no racism in India. We have to drive for miles for you to show me my people. We keep on driving, we'll be back to Africa. Okay. He takes them clear into this remote part of India that was basically on the bottom end of the country somewhere. And they had this village that is nothing but black people. And they have the black leader. They have a culture. They live in these little containers where it just looks like slabs of aluminum put together. And they cook their own food, and they, and they get everything that they need off the Indians. And then they talk about how the Indians patrol the neighborhood, and they are real touchy about drugs and all like that. And they're looking at each other like, how do we get our hands on drugs in a foreign country? We're not at home. How do we get our hands on drugs? We don't even know. You know what I'm saying? Like, unless the Indians are giving us the drugs, how are we getting our hands on it? I mean, they own everything. They control everything, Now, in the Middle East, the Arabs are the worst population of Middle Eastern people. Their cultures tend to be very, very ghetto, much like African Americans or black people here in America. They live in ghettos, and they practice violence and crime every day, and these are the kind of people that will go into any country as a refugee. These are the kind of people that join ISIS and so forth like that. And I didn't know until today, because you see most Indian people, they look like they're trying to draft, or they look like they're trying to study medicine or study automobiles or something. They all look like scientists. They don't look like the kind of people that would put their hands on black folks or show any forms of racism to black folks. But I've seen these videos today via YouTube. If you want to tell me YouTube is a fat lie, that's fine. But I'm going to give you an American example in a second. But they were showing this video, and I saw this video today where this black girl and a group of people, and there was this guy that travels back and forth to India, who his birthright is in India, his birthland is in India. But I guess he travels back and forth to America and other parts of the Middle East and so forth. So, but there was this Indian, I don't know, I guess he's some kind of chief of police or justice or judge or some kind of politician in India in that. And they got these two people to do a rebuttal, however you pronounce that, on an Indian television show where the black girl on there looked like she was half Indian and half black. And they have a bunch of Indians there. Well, they have an Indian lady there, and they have all these African people. And him and this guy were going back and forth with each other. And he was trying to explain to this man who they got on the call. He was trying to explain to him, this judge, I think he was, of racism in India. And all the man could say is they're doing this, and they're doing that, and they're doing drugs. And he was arguing with him, like, how are they getting drugs if they're not getting it from the Indians? And, you know, he was just, you know, they're just going back and forth. And I looked at that, and I'm thinking, Jesse Lee Peterson, you cannot go anywhere in the world without racism. When you take me to a village and you say, here's your people, and the village looks like, you know, a third world country worse than Somalia. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's nothing there but a bunch of containers for people to live in that looked like they were abandoned, like people was leaving their slop in there. Okay? And these people were like happy to be there, you know. And they're dancing, doing a little African dance or whatever. Them costumes that they were wearing look nice and clean. They look like they cost money, but they're dancing and doing a little dance and stuff. And he's getting all happy. He's finally found his culture. My question is, which is the point of this video, why can't he celebrate his culture among the Indians, being he's in their nation? Why can't he celebrate his culture among the Indians, being he's in their nation? If there is no racism, why do we need to drive you miles into near the end of the country somewhere that's been deserted? The Indians don't really need to go over there for anything. And they, you know, they don't do, there's nothing for them to do there but ride through and check up on you. I guess to make sure you didn't become Indian. You know, racism is everywhere. Racism is natural. Now, as a Christian, getting into it, as a Christian, my Bible tells me that when God spoke to Abraham about the Jewish nation, about starting the Jewish nation. And this is another thing my Democratic good friend of mine at the hospital said to me, I said to her yesterday. Because she said something about some people are Jews and some are Catholic. And I said, stop, wait. I didn't say it like that. That's the way I talk to my fellow officers. I said, let me chime in here for a little bit. You said you were claiming your daughter had a problem with these people. Some of them were Jewish and some were Catholic. I says, do you understand that Jews are a race? Okay? And you know, and then the biracial kid, he started saying some stuff as if, and I had to explain to him, stop, wait. There are secular Jews that have been born and raised in Israel. That is their homeland, that is their language. That is, you know, there's atheist Jews. There are Judaism. So when the lady said Judaism, or when she said Jewish, she meant Judaism. Just because you're Jew doesn't mean you practice Judaism. And there's Christian Jews. Why does everybody talk about Jews as just Jews? That's the most racist thing I've ever heard. There's all kinds of Jews. There's a Jewish guy at my place of business with his hair down to here. And he loves for anybody. He's a rabbi. He got one of them halos on his head. And she tried to say, you know, there was one of the people with them halos on their head. I said, those are Judaics. Those are Jewish rabbis, or they're children that are born to a Jewish rabbi family. That's not Catholic, unless it's Jewish Catholic. Okay, now you got me sounding like her. But there's people that are in the Catholic Church. There are churches in America. You won't see this in Israel. Okay? And let me say this again. Israelites are people that live in Israel, whether they're Jews or not. If they were born and raised in Israel, they're Israelites. Okay? Jews are the people, okay, whose birthright goes all the way back to Abraham. Okay? And God told Abraham, through you, all the nations of the world will be blessed. You will be a blessing, and I will bless those that bless you. Okay? But there's just as many types of Jews as there's different types of white people. I believe you even have some Jews that are Muslim, which got to be the smallest number of Islamics. But, you know, because they grew up in the Middle East and the Jews never did anything for them, and they felt so accepted being the only Jew in whatever region of the Middle East they were, they fit right in because, you know, you really can't tell them apart. And you know, depending on the part of the world that they grew up in, they figure, okay, well, I'm Muslim. And they would come over here and they would tell you that their heritage is actually Jew, but they are Muslim by faith. Now, in closing, my Bible tells me that when God talked to Abraham about the Jewish nation, or nations, whichever one you want to call it, he had no intention on Jews separating themselves from people who accepted the same God as them. And if you look at Israel in the Bible, you'll see that whenever they had slaves, whenever they had concubines, whenever they had traveled and won wars and they brought captives into their region, there's a lot to learn here in the Bible that we can still use in this world today. I can show you in the Bible where we can solve this whole thing. But slaves became the children and the offspring of Jews. The concubines of a lot of Jewish people were women from all around the world. Matter of fact, even the wives of a lot of Jewish people, especially if they were kings, like King Solomon, his wife, his last wife anyway, was not Israelite. I think she was, she was dark, so I think she was from closer to Africa, okay? And he had many wives. He had wives from all around the world in his harem. Okay? This is not about concubines and harems. This is about how race is treated in the Bible. You know, even the atheists and the slaves, you know, let me tell you something about slaves. Slaves were married. Slaves were members of your own family. Let me bust that nut right there. Slaves were members of your own family a lot of times. Slaves were people who came into your country. They weren't of your bloodline, but they became your people. And they didn't always stay slave, but they worked their way up to being Israelites. And they fought for the Israelites, just like today in America. Anybody, you know, we got blacks and Asians and so forth in our military. Okay? But these people that came in through slavery, that came in through, you know, concubinage or whatever, they became wives and they became leaders and they became, you know, and let me tell you something. Something I noticed in these videos that I watched today. Now, the one black girl was a student. The one African girl living in India was a student. But there's a lot of people in Israel in the Bible who, and not only Israel, but when Israel was taken as slaves, okay, there were a lot of people that built their culture on knowledge and education. Black folks, they built cultures based on education, and they had things that they brought from home that they could share with their superiorities. Okay? And that is how they beat the whole superiority-inferiority complex. Because they came in there, they brought something with them that they could share with their captors. They brought something there that would elevate them from being a slave to being the leader of the slaves, from being the leader of the slaves to being one of the king's officials, to the point to where they had their own harem of women, to the point where they had their own money and power, and they had their own security and everything, and you know, it's going to take an arm and a leg for you to point at this person and make him feel inferior. Why? Because the king has accepted him as one of his best men that he knows. And, you know, like Daniel in the Bible, okay? Like Joseph in the Bible. You know, Joseph became the king of Egypt. But what do we do in this modern day time? If we don't have what we want, we look at the people that have it and we call ourselves slaves. We look at the people that have it and we call ourselves victims of their racism. In closing, this is how you get rid of racism. The Bible says, do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. Let me flip it around. Would you want me, if I was the man holding the money and the power and running things, would you want me to take you miles out of the way and show you your people and tell you to stick with your own kind and you'll be welcomed among us, when me sticking with my own kind leaves me with less? But again, I respect the fact that we all have to have something to give. We all have to have something to elevate ourselves. Okay? Because in a family, and that's the way the Bible talks about us, we're all God's children, we're all the human race. And if there's anything that separates me from you, it should be something that I have that you can look up to me for. And it's your job, and vice versa if it was the other way around. It's your job or my job to tell each other that, hey, if it wasn't for you, when do black people ever show any, attitude of looking up to white people or thanking white people for what they've done for us, or, telling white people a simple thank you for what you've done for us, or telling white people, hey, if it wasn't for you. Jesse Lee Peterson said it, and these white nationalists said, well, we just want to be white, we want to separate ourselves from black. And meanwhile, Jesse Lee Peterson sitting there saying, well, we really, really thank the white people for what they've done for us. And, I think it's wrong for us to look at each other's color, and these white nationalists are constantly, telling where they need to, we need to separate ourselves, and it doesn't mean we don't like each other because we separate ourselves. And a lot of people think that this is biblical, and it's not. God is not a racist. And God is all about diversity. What he isn't about is false religion. Okay? Which is why I would never go to Islam. Or I'm sorry, see, I'm wrong. I would never go to the Middle East. I would never go to Iraq or, Saudi Arabia or any of that. I would never go into that world, okay? Especially now with Donald Trump in office, and he's getting ready to deport people and things of that, all in the name of making America what it was, what the founding fathers said it should be, instead of what the new Democrats, the liberals, the pagan parts of us want to make this to be. This is the wrong time in history to be traveling and going to other countries. If you think there's racism here in America, with Donald Trump in office, okay, and yes, I still think that's a good thing. With Donald Trump in office, okay, Mexicans, Syrians, Muslims, Arabs, these people, okay, even some Africans, okay, these people are up to kill you. You're due for a head chopping, okay? I'm not going anywhere. I got friends who tell me, oh, you never been to Mexico? You need to go down there. Not today. Not today, baby. It's not going to happen, okay? I'm not going anywhere. Okay? I don't know if I want to leave. I always wanted to go to California once. Now I don't know if I ever want to go to California. If Donald Trump don't get things set right in California, okay, I'll never go to California. I might skip over California and go to Nevada, go to Las Vegas or something like that, I think Hawaii's doing better than all of us because people just, like me, are afraid of water, okay, except for when we're taking a shower. Don't nobody want to fly over all that water or swim over all that water, to get to the lovely lands, But I can't even go to South Africa to visit my so-called own people. Because that's been taken over by whites, and now we got some hate on Donald Trump nonsense going on there. But in closing, I want to say this. Yes, I believe in racism. I don't believe in systematic racism. I don't believe that white people get together and have meetings about what we're going to do about black people. Okay, I don't believe that one white person is just as racist as another, and they've been talking up to each other on the phone, talking about what we're going to do with these niggas, or what we're going to do with these Latinos, or what we're going to do with these Japs, or what we're going to do with, you know what I'm saying? They're not doing that. And I agree with Jesse Lee on that. But I do believe that racism does exist. And I do believe that every day, when I walk into a store, I could go into a store looking like this. Do I look like a thug? Okay? And there's people in there that will follow me around the store. I go to a store right down the street from me in the ghetto. Okay? In the ghetto. And white people, after all this time, are still too dumb to realize that not all black people that walk into the store are ghetto. Just because you're in the ghetto, that don't make everybody ghetto. Okay? And I think that black people need to get out more because, in your ghetto, you're bound, or in a city that's next to your ghetto, you're bound to go through some things. You're bound to go through some stereotypes. But I've been to plenty of neighborhoods. The most heart-touching thing that ever happened to me was I went to a neighborhood where I know one black person in that neighborhood. There's more in there today, but at that time I knew only one black person in that neighborhood. And he said he had some problems with the neighbors, but he loved the town and all like that. And I went to his town and I was lost. And I went into a local t-shirt store where they make t-shirts or something like that. They make, they print out t-shirts or whatever, stamping or whatever. And I went in there and two beautiful white ladies. Nobody in the store but them, or wherever the white dude was. He must have been using the toilet or something. I don't know where he was, but two pretty white ladies. And I walked in there and I said, I'm lost. I told them what I was looking for. They said, oh, it's right behind us. And I said, oh, so I go here to the corner and make a right, and it's... They said, no, you ain't got to do that. They opened the door. Right there. Right past the cash register. They said, no, you ain't got to walk. We're just a shortcut through here. It's okay. We're fine with it. Come on through here. Go through that door. The girl and the other girl opened the other door. Escorted me back through the warehouse, through all the merchandise, all the private merchandise and all that stuff. And escorted me to the back door, and boom, there it was right across the street. I almost cried. But see, this is the problem with black folks, is that this goes on a lot in this country. Where white people go out of their way to extend their hand of respect for you. And like these two people, different than my lady friend last night, they didn't even think about the fact that I was black and that a lot of blacks are thugs. They thought about the fact that they know who they are and they know there ain't a racist bone in their body. I'm free to think whatever I want to think. And white people that are opposed to them can think whatever they want to think. But look, we're not going to have this man walk all the way around the corner. So that's closing it. I'm DeRoy Cruz, your life applications officer. Look, man, it's all about love. Jesus said, love your enemies. You may say this ain't got nothing to do with the subject. Yes, it does, and it works. There's people in churches practicing this, and I'm one of them. And as much racism as I've been through, I still don't hate white people. I still don't believe in white supremacy. I still don't believe in systematic racism. But do I believe that a lot of people don't want me in this country, even though I've been born here? I don't know anything else. Even though I work hard, I'm educated, I have everything going for me, and I have plenty of people keeping me in line as well. But a lot of people feel, okay, with or without, both, and it's both Republicans and Democrats. It's not just Democrats that hate on black people or minorities, so to speak. It is Republicans too, because a lot of Republicans are looking at Donald Trump differently than I'm looking at him, just like a lot of Democrats are looking at Donald Trump differently than I'm looking at him. They think Donald Trump is a racist, he's just afraid to say it, and they think that, you know, initially when Donald Trump starts deporting people and all like that, this is going to be all KKK territory, and it's not. Because I don't think our country wants to go back that far in time, okay? Jim Crow is dead and he ain't coming back, okay? So, God bless you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon with maybe more, Lord willing.